Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Radhe. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Bhakta Prahlad. Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Lakshmana Hanuman Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Lakshmana Hanuman. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Vishpara Paramansa Prabhajakacharya Ashtottara Sarashishimar Iskon Pratishta Vividi Samstapakachar Vaishnava Siromani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Rata Patita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhacharana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Bhakti Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhakti Das Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai नामाचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्तविंद की जय, परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनाक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमन गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरनाय अवतार की जय। गौर के प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। गृह मृदांग ट्रांसलेट बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपिना राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। जलोशिव श्री राधा नीलमाधव की जय। श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम कित्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु स्मृति सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशना करण सिंहरे भगवान की जय। गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। बोलो श्री मथुरा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त विंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रमानंदी। All glories to the assembled bodies. All glories to the assembled bodies. All glories to the assembled bodies. All glories, glory to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gaura. Jaya Silatanka Nakalaye Ito Nishinga Barato Nishinga
Yato yato yamita to nasamha.
Jaya Jato Jato Jamita To Nishinga
Bahe nasamha trudahe nasamha.
Bhayir Nishinga Rudaye Nishinga
Simhamadim charanam prapade.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade
Tavakaraka malavare nakam abhuta shinga. Tarita hiranyakashipu tanu bringa. Keshavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare. Jai jagadisha hare. Jai jagadisha hare.
Babakara Kamala Bare Nakam Adabhuta Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanavinda Keshavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Jaya Nashing Made, Jaya Nashing Made, Jaya Nashing Made, Jaya Nashing Made. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
भक्ति विघ्न विनाशक नरसिंह भगवान की जय।
Well done.
भक्ति शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की
Jai.
शील प्रभुपाद की।
Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavatyai Namo Namaha. Jai Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai.
Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namo.
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namah
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namo.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Bilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi.
Shetomaya Sharanaloy Tara Vancha Purnahoy Kripa Kori Kara Tare Vrindavana Basi Moraye ya Vilas Vilas Kunjedi Avas Nayane Heri Bhaksada Shugala Ruparashi Hey Nivedana Daro Sakiranugata Koro Sevadi Karadie Koro Nijadasi Dina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namora Hoy
Dina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namora.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme
Sadayena Basi
Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Basi.
Namo Nama Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama.
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Tyati Kani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahma Dari Kanisa Tani Tani Panna Shanti Pradakshina Padi Padi.
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Tyati Kani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahma Dari Kanisa Tani Tani Panna Shanti Pradakshina Padi Padi.
Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Tyati Kani Cha Tani Tani Prana Shanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahma Dari Kanisa Tani Tani Panna Shanti Pradakshina Padi Padi.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani.
Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nita Gaura Haribo, 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 Nita Gaura Haribo.
Jai Gaura Haribo, 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 Jai Gaura Haribo. Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayi Tulasi Bai Priyaye Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Ke Sava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavataye Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinde Devi Ki. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carried into of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen Lord is servant Krishna prays. May I always sing me love of Shri Radha and Govind. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinde Devi Ki. We have 10 offenses to be avoided, matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord. That should be. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme devotees who dedicate their life of prohibiting the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, our Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the very scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often Vedas as spiritual activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaivacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikyastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanamajanam Bhava Mahadavan Nirvapanam Shreyakari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jeevanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnam Paramparam Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamittashmarane Nakala Itadrisita Vakripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaevam Idrishamiya Janina Murada Vinadapi Sunisena Sarorapi Saishuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagarisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishari Bhavata Bhaktira Itukitvayi Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritam Mam Visame Bhavambu कृपया तव पाद पंकज स्थिता धूलि सदृशं विचिन्तय नयनं गलौरश्रुधारय वादनं गदगदरुद्धय गिर पुराकाञ्चितां वपु कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति जुगायितं निमिषेण चक्षुषा प्रवृषायितं शून्यायितं जगत् सर्वं गोविन्द विरहेण मे अश्लेषवापादरतं पिनस्तु माम् अदर्शनार्मर्महतं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणतस्तु सैवनापरः हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु शिक्षास्तकम की जय श्री गुरु प्रणाम मंगल चरण की जय ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप sorry we jumped in the translation of Shikshastakam, sorry. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life with the period of birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the primary benediction for humanity at large because its present rays the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which all is anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, think of oneself a Lord and stroll in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet some or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the Lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so, even if there's no rightfully best embrace, or makes me broken hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Pranam Mangala Charan Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Bandeyam Shri Guru Shri Juta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamritam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhut Shrimati Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunnavadi Patsatyadi Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutare Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripavdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhujjala Primadhya Shirupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravane Shrimurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Posidanta Dvanta Harine Namagor Kishoraya Sakya Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambhode Paramujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchit Anandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumeswam Nidesa Priya Vaishnava Sarva Bhuma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaeva Paritanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauri Tvishe Namaha Panchatattvamakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataro Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jaitam Suratopango Mama Mandamatir Gati Matsarvasya Parambujo Radha Madanamo Divyavindaranya Kapatimata Shmara Nagara Singasana Shmaradha Shra Govindadevo Prasthali Vishevamana Shmarami Shmara Sarasaram Devam Shiva Tatatasita Kashavenu Swanel Gopinata Shri Estuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrusavano Sutedevi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaja Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. So today we're in the third canto, chapter 8, verse or text number 1, manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. So we're continuing now hearing a whole bunch of other things about how the material world was created. And it's going to very deep detail. And yesterday we read all these verses of questions that Vidura, these are more questions that Vidura has about how the material universe was created. And very, very precise and very, very technical and very, very detailed questions. And so Maitreya Muni now is going to answer every one of those questions. Therefore it says, Maitreya Uvacha Sat Sevani Yobata Sat Sevani Yobata Puruvamso Yaloka Palo Bhagavat Pradana Prabhu Vite Ajita Kirtimalam Pade Pade Nutanaya Syab Abhikshanam. Maitreya Uvacha. Sri Maitreya Muni said, Sat Sevaniya, worthy to serve the pure devotees. Bhata, oh,
certain Puru Vamsa, the descendants of King Puru, yet because Lokapala, the kings are Bhagavat Pradhana, chiefly devoted to the personality of Godhead. Prabhu Vita, you are also born. Iha, in this, Ajita, the Lord, who is unconquerable. Kirtimalam, chain of transcendental activities. Pade pade, step by step. Nutanayasi, becoming newer and newer. Abhikshanam, always. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, the royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya thanked Vidura and praised him by reference to his family glories. The Puru dynasty was full of devotees of the personality of Godhead and was therefore glorious because they were not attached to impersonal Brahman or to the localized Paramatma, but were directly attached to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. They were worthy to render service to the Lord and His pure devotees. Because Vidura was one of the descendants of that family, naturally he engaged in spreading wide the ever-new glories of the Lord. Maitreya felt happy to have such glorious company as Vidura. He considered the company of Vidura most desirable because such association can accelerate one's dormant propensities for devotional service. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, the royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. Hari Bol. So this is very interesting because when we begin to ask questions about Krishna, but serious questions, not nonsense questions, wonderful things happen. And in general, devotees begin to feel ecstatic because they're going to hear about Krishna. So that is what gives great pleasure to the devotees. And this is also explained in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it says, basically that when devotees ask significant questions or serious questions to a bona fide spiritual master, as Vidura is doing to Maitreya Muni, he has accepted as a spiritual master, then the spiritual master becomes very enthusiastic to answer all the questions of the devotee. So this is the original culture of Bharat, or spiritual, of Vedic times. People did not go to schools like, universities or high schools or things like that. Students were taught by a guru. And usually there was always at least one guru in every village, and the parents would send their children to the guru, and he did not charge for education, But once a year they would give some token things to express their gratitude to the guru for spending time educating their kids. This was a very effective educational system. You didn't have classrooms like 40 people in the classroom, one teacher, and then half the time or three-quarters of the time teacher has to deal with kids that are disturbing the class. So, no, the kids were treated very nicely by the guru and the guru's wife, and he taught them Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. All knowledge is in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. You have astrology, you have mathematics, you have geometry, you have geology, you have geographics, you have all kinds of science. Everything is in there. You have psychology and so forth. So it's very important that we understand the very negative effects of modern education. Why? Because they don't want you to believe in God. They want you to become a consumer. And they also limit your potential by saying there's nothing after death and everything started by some kind of an accident and there's only matter. There's no such thing as spirit or soul. And so they limit your, let's say, kshetra or field of activity to this one life. And they say you only live once. And then they emphasize the importance of making money and using that money for your self-indulgence or sense gratification. And we see this all over the world, not even in India. Although India has all this tradition of transcendental knowledge, they're also ignoring everything, and they've become duped to accept this atheistic educational system called atheistic humanism. Okay, so in Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 11, verse number 36 says, Arjuna said, O master of the senses, meaning, O Krishna, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, and thus everyone becomes attached to you. Although the perfected beings offer you their respectful homage, the demons are afraid, and they flee here and there. All this is rightly done. Now, this is a very interesting verse. What is it saying? Well, it says that Krishna basically is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Arjuna is saying, O master of the senses. That means we have senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. Now, what is the purpose of those senses? Well, there's two possibilities. One is they can be used for sense gratification, or they can be used for gathering knowledge by which we can become convinced that devotional service to Krishna is the real goal of life, and thus we don't get fooled by modern education. We engage in full-time devotional service and go back to Godhead in this lifetime and take many other people with us. So the senses are specific. Okay, go tell them to stop talking. Just open the curtain and tell them. Just open the curtain here and tell them. So the devotees become joyful when they hear about Krishna, and the demons go away. So if you want to get rid of a demon, just start talking about Krishna. Now, I saw a practical example of this. I used to be in Berkeley, California, and every day I would go out on Sankirtan and distribute food to homeless people. And on Telegraph Avenue, you have these vendors on the street. They set up a table and they sell things. Well, there was one Muslim guy from Iran that had a table. And every time I would walk by his table, I would say, Hare Krishna. And he'd say, stop it. I don't want to hear. Your God is not God. My God is God. Right. He was like fanatic. But it didn't stop me. So I would go out on Telegraph Avenue. I'd walk past his table. I'd say, Hare Krishna. And he said, stop it. And then when I was coming back to the temple, I'd say, Hare Krishna. He said, stop it. Right. So this went on for about a year or so. Right. And at one point, one day, he came to the temple. So he comes into the temple and he sees me, and I look at him, smile, and say, Hare Krishna. He says, stop it. He said, you make me crazy. I said, why? He said, you always say this Hare Krishna. See, he said Hare Krishna the first time, right? I said, well, why did you come here then? He said, I want to tell you something. I said, okay, what is it? He said, every day I'm out there on the street, and people come to buy things. But there's some shaitani people. Shaitani means Satan-like people. Right? They come, and one of them is on this side of the table, one of them is in front of me, on the looking at the table, and one of them is on that side of the table. And the one over here says, oh, how much is this? And I look over there, and then the guy over there steals something, right? And so this happens over some time, and then one day, when they came again, I said, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and I looked at each one of them, and I just kept saying, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and all the shaitani people went away. He said, your God is the strongest God. I was really surprised, So I said, okay, so what are you going to do? He said, I want to come here and I want to help you people. I said, okay. He said, what can I do? I said, you go wash the dishes. I said, okay, I'll do that. So he started coming every day and washing the pots and dishes for about an hour or more, right? And he liked it. And he became a devotee, right? It was like incredible thing. So you see, that's the power of the holy name. So therefore, when you ask serious questions, so here it says, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, O Krishna, and thus everyone becomes attached to you. Although the perfected beings offer you their respectful homage, the demons are afraid, and they flee here and there. All this is rightly done. So you see, the demons went away when he started looking at them, and they thought he was going to maybe kill him or something, And he said, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, like that. And then they just all went away. So then there's another verse that's very interesting that says, O Janardhan, O Krishna, again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I am never satiated, or I'm never satisfied, in hearing about you. For the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, a similar statement was made to Sutta Goswami by the rishis of Naimisharanya, headed by Sonaka. That statement is, Vayam tu na vitripyama uttama sloka vikrame yachchinvatam rasa jnanam swadu swadu pade pade. One can never be satiated or satisfied, even though one continuously hears the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, who is glorified by excellent prayers. Those who have entered into a transcendental relationship with Krishna relish at every step the descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.19. Thus, Arjuna is interested in hearing about Krishna and specifically how he remains as the all-pervading Supreme Lord. Now, this is exactly what's happening between Vidura and Maitreya Muni. Vidura cannot get enough, let's say, nectar of hearing about Krishna. So he's asking all these pertinent questions. There's already a description of how the material world was created, and it was a pretty, let's say, detailed description in the chapter 6 and 7. But he's asking more fine, very, very, let's say, subtle, in some cases, subtle questions about more details about the creation. In other words, he can't get enough of this. It's causing him ecstatic feelings, hearing about how Krishna created. Because if you hear how Krishna created the material world, the spiritual world is always existing. The material world is sometimes visible and sometimes not visible. So there's a question of creation and dissolution. So Vidura can't get enough of it. He wants to hear more and more. And this is part of the science of Krishna. Obviously, creating the universe, that's the most technical thing and scientific thing in the whole existence of mankind, right? And all the explanations that the speculator, so-called scientists and philosophers give are mostly sketchy or outright wrong. But here, now we're hearing the real thing, how Krishna actually did it. And who could be a better expert than Krishna himself? He is the creator of everything, of everything in the material world. The spiritual world doesn't need to be created because it's eternally existent. But the material world goes through this creation and dissolution on a regular basis. Okay, so then it says, one can never be satisfied even though one continuously hears the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, who is glorified by excellent prayers. Those who have entered into a transcendental relationship with Krishna relish at every step the descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord. This is a verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.19. Thus, Arjuna is interested in hearing about Krishna and specifically how he remains as the all-pervading Supreme Lord. Now, as far as Amrita or nectar is concerned, any narration or statement concerning Krishna is just like nectar, and this nectar can be perceived by practical experience. Modern stories, fiction, and histories are different from the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, in that one will tire of hearing mundane stories, but one never tires of hearing about Krishna. It is for this reason only that the history of the whole universe is replete or full with references to the pastimes of the incarnations of Godhead. The Puranas are histories of bygone ages that relate the pastimes of the various incarnations of the Lord. In this way, the reading matter remains forever fresh despite repeated readings. In other words, you can read Bhagavad Gita 100 times. On the 100th time, you will still discover things you missed. You can read it 1,000 times. On the 1,000th time, you will realize that you missed some things. That's how great the Bhagavad Gita is. It's a very short book, but it has everything, and it could take you many lifetimes to understand all the subtleties of explanation that's in the Bhagavad Gita. But if you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, it gives even more information about who Krishna is. So those two books, if you want to know who Krishna is, you read those two books. And not only read them, it's better to hear them spoken by genuine devotees. Then you really can ask questions also. Okay, so the first verse I read says, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, Krishna, and thus everyone becomes attached to you, although the perfected beings offer you their respectful homage or respect or their appreciation. The demons are afraid and they flee here and there. Okay, so now you can tell who is a demon. When you start talking about Krishna, they check out. They find an excuse to say, "Well, I got something to do." I say, "Oh, thank you very much," and we'll talk about this some other time. And they go away. So if you want to get rid of a demon, either you do like my friend, the Muslim, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They'll go away because they think you're crazy. Or you start talking about Krishna's pastimes. They say, "Well, I got another appointment, so thank you very much, and don't call me, I'll call you." That's a foolproof way of getting rid of a demon. But sometimes the demon might start asking you questions. And if you answer them nicely, like Vidura is answering all of, Maitreya is answering all of Vidura's questions very nicely, or just like Krishna is answering all of Arjuna's questions nicely, then they might become a devotee. And it happens. The Muslim became a devotee, right? Just because every day I was saying Hare Krishna to him. Okay, so now on the 13th chapter, 26th verse, let's take a look at that. 13th chapter, 26th verse. It says, "Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death." This is 13th chapter, 26th verse. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, this verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society there is practically no education. What? You know what the allocation of money is for education in the United States? Why don't you look that up? How much does the government spend on education in the United States? It's an astronomical number. In fact, every year you have these new, let's say, proposals that come that people have to vote on for more money to build more schools or to repair schools, etc. And people always vote for them because their kids are going to school and they say, well, I should vote for this because they're going to spend more money to educate my kids. And more, the kids are not getting educated, even though they're spending so much money. Does it say? Did you see? You have a figure? Yeah. Your microphone is not on. It's not on. Yeah, now it's on.
The $1.5 trillion fiscal 2022 spending package.
How much?
1.5 trillion.
$1.5 trillion was spent in what year?
2022. Full spending in a year.
Oh, 76 billion.
Okay. 76.4 billion.
$76.4 billion on education spent by the government. On
28,977 per
What?
pupil.
What?
28,977 per pupil in public post-secondary schools, Maharaj.
How much?
28,977 per pupil.
So for each child in the United States, the government spends $28,977. Now you tell me, are you getting the money's worth? I don't think so. No. Because they're educating your kid to be an impersonalist or an atheist and a consumer and basically a Sudra working for other people to help them get rich, and they make some money too, but nothing like the big, let's say, the big guys like Elon Musk or Bezos, or all these people, the billionaires. By the way, the billionaires are having their annual convention now in Europe, and they're all figuring out, how are we gonna cheat them some more. They're experts at cheating people, right? Okay, so $76.4 billion on education a year, and the kids are not getting educated. You might say, "Well, no, my kid, he's going to be in the IT," but that means he's become a Sudra. Sudras are people that work for others to help them get rich. Okay, they also make money, but nothing like what the owners or the exploiters make. And you have to work hard. And sometimes you work so hard you have no time at all for Krishna consciousness. You're exhausted by the work. And then they threaten to fire you, and they have these 6-month, evaluation of your work, right? And people are afraid of that because, and then sometimes if your team team leader wants to get rid of you, even though you do good work, they'll give you a bad report and get rid of you. It's very highly competitive, and it's full of anxiety, and it affects people. Sometimes when people get laid off, they get a gun and go back and they shoot the owner or the team leader. It happens almost every month in the United States. Okay, so here it says, this verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society there's practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there's no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, what was our homework for today? So, you tell us. I'll give it a microphone. It's all right. You can pull it. Turn it on.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, one of the homeworks was to outline the main points of Srila Prabhupada's lecture, and the other one was to, I think, why Vishnu sleeps.
Supposed to read the verse, 3rd canto, what was it, 26th chapter.
3:26:32.
3:26:32, which is about?
Which is about like the senses and like sound.
Everything begins by sound.
Everything begins by sound.
Right. And that sound influences you in a very significant way. So now, if you see some guy walking down the street with a boom box, you know what a boom box is? No? Anybody know what a boom box is? Yes? What? Well, it's a box like that, and they sort of carry it, and they turn it on the highest volume, right? Or else they put earphones on their ear, and they're listening to rat music, and sometimes they're moving around like this, and then they're humming something like that because they're hearing this music, and if they take off their earphones and pull out the plug for the earphones, then you hear it all over the place because it's very, very loud music, and it's all nonsense. See? So, that is sound. Everything begins from sound. So if you listen to the boombox sound, you become a boomy, or a boogie, or like a booger, right? Your mind gets completely contaminated by hearing that sound. And if you listen to transcendental sound, you become purified, and your mind becomes full of transcendental visions of Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. So everything begins from sound in the creation and also in our life. And you see there are so many sounds being produced. There's in television, there's in radio, there's in movies, there's in schools. Everything is based on sound. You hear something and it puts an idea or a picture in your mind, and eventually you can become completely engrossed in that thing just by regular hearing. Just like if you regularly hear politics, then you're always going to be anxious to hear more. Look at the news, see what's happening. And if you regularly hear sports, then you're excited every day to hear, who won this football game, or who won this baseball game. And if you hear about the stock market, then you're excited to hear every day, did my stock go up or did it come down? What happened? This thing, that thing. So you see, it's all based on sound. So we have to choose what sound we're going to hear. You want to hear the sound of all speculation in the school about Big Bang and this thing and that thing. We come from monkeys, and there's no God, and blah blah. Or science cannot substantiate or validate the existence of God. Therefore, we ignore God. What? What is that? That's nonsense. That's the sound that's being given on a regular basis in these schools. Okay, so it says here, it is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization, and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse, particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate, although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers. Faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. This is 13th chapter, verse number 26. So now we've covered 3 different verses. The first one was how the world becomes joyful in hearing Krishna's name, but the demons are afraid. So now we learned how to get rid of a demon. You do like my Muslim friend who became a devotee, right? You just look him straight in the eye and go, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They think you're crazy. They'll go away, right? Or you start talking about Krishna. Krishna lifted up Govardhan Hill. Krishna did this. Krishna did that. And then the demon will say, "Oh, I got another appointment. I thank you very much for talking about it. I got to go right away. Don't call me. I'll call you." Or else, so you see, it's not difficult to get rid of a demon. You just talk about Krishna, or you just look at him straight in the eye and start chanting. They'll go away. Right? And then we talked about, that was 13th chapter, 26, 26th verse. Then we talked about the 10th chapter, 18th verse, how one is never satisfied by hearing about Krishna. And that's what's happening now between Vidura and Maitreya Muni. Vidura can't get enough nectar from his guru, Maitreya Muni, and therefore he's asking all these questions to him, more secondary questions, after already hearing how the material world was created. Now he wants to know much more details, subtle details of how it happened. So, because he can't get enough of this nectar. And then, so if you experience that in your life, that means you're on the fast track to go back to Godhead. Just like some people can't get enough of the stock market, or some people can't get enough of sports, or some people can't get enough of porn, or some people can't get enough of the business channels where they're selling things 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day they're selling something, right? They can't get enough of it. They're listening and they see if there's a bargain, or etc. And then also politics. There's some people that can't get enough of politics. They're listening to it every day, right? But if you can't get enough of Krishna nectar, Krishna Katha, that means you're going to go back to Godhead. Whereas all the others, the politics and this thing and that thing, you're going back to the animal kingdom with a tail and 4 legs, or you can end up becoming a bug with 1,000 legs, right? A centipede has 100 legs, and there's some little creatures with 1,000 legs. Okay, so and then the third one we discussed was how some people, just by regular hearing, they become a devotee, and hearing from a bona fide, guru. Okay, so now let's have the homeworks. So Sanmyuk, you start. You read your homework. Because the homework is about sound as the origin of all things, like the material creation, as well as the nonsense sounds will be the beginning of your degeneration into ignorance. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So the homework was to read Srila Prabhupada's lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 26th chapter, 32nd verse, and make an outline of the main points from the document. So first, the origin of creation is sound, and everything in the material world is a spiritual. Another point is that everything in the material world is a spiritual reflection.
Okay, so just repeat that again. Start over.
The first point is that the origin of creation is sound.
Okay, now, just think about that. You know how complicated creation of the material world is? We're just getting an idea about it now by reading this 3rd canto, which is all about that. And imagine that. It all begins by sound. And what is that sound? Let me ask that question. What is that sound, that original sound? It's Omkara. See? And from that, this is what you would call, see, today we have what's called binary technology. Binary technology is based on 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0. Right? Therefore, if you go on a computer, because it's based on this 1 0 1 0, your brain will be, let's say, your brain will be influenced to be 1 0 1 0. So you go and you look up one thing, and then you go look up a second thing, and then you go look up a third thing, and then you go look up a fourth thing. You could spend hours and hours on the internet, and many kids do, or on their cell phone, going from one thing to another thing, because that's what binary technology is all about. It conditions your mind to always change, constant change, right? And just like in movies, they make a movie by having like 2 minutes of love, 2 minutes of hate, 2 minutes of fear, 2 minutes of fighting, 2 minutes of this, 2 minutes of that, right? If they have the same thing all the time, you'd get bored. So to keep your attention, every minute or two, there's a change. And it catches your attention, and your mind is going from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing. So that conditions your mind not to be able to focus on one thing. But the creation begins with Omkara, and that is not a binary technology, it's a monary technology. Look at that word. So let's see if that word exists in English. Monary, M-O-N-A-R-Y. A monary technology means oneness. You focus on one thing. And if that one thing is Krishna, then you learn everything. Okay? Is that a word? What's it say? Okay, what's the second? No, is that monarchy? No, I said monary, M-O-N-A-R-Y. Okay, maybe monary is my word, made up word. So unary, U-N-A-R-Y. What does that say? Okay. All right, so we use the word unary. I like monary better, but anyway. So, the ability, see, the entire ancient educational system is based on keeping your mind focused on one thing. And what is that one thing? That's Krishna. But if it's Krishna, that's everything. Krishna is the source of everything. So although you're focused on one thing, you learn everything completely. And that's why Vidura, he can't get enough of this explanation. I mean, why doesn't Vidura say, look, don't explain all this stuff to me. Just tell me about Krishna's transcendental pastimes. He doesn't say that. He wants to know everything about Krishna. So, therefore, the Bhagavatam is, 18 cantos. And the first 10 cantos, the first 9 cantos are not talking about Krishna's transcendental pastimes in Goloka. It's talking about his different incarnations and so many other subjects. Okay. So go ahead now, sorry.
Hare Krishna. Everything, the second point is that everything in the material world is a spiritual reflection. And then hearing comes from sound, and then touch or
What comes from sound?
Hearing.
Oh yeah, okay.
Hearing comes from sound, and touch or sparsha is created by air, and the form sensation is created by fire. Taste or rasa is created from water, and smell or gandha is created from earth. Rupa, rasa, gandha, shabda, and sparsha.
So does that sound like science to you? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, this is scientific explanation of how the world begins. Go ahead.
The next point, the whole material world is under the mode of tamas, ignorance. Material sound is in the mode of ignorance. However, in Vedic literature, sound is actually spiritual. The Vedic sound Om is very auspicious and transcendental.
See, there it is. It all starts with Om. Go ahead.
By chanting Om at the time of death, one can be sure to go to the impersonal spiritual effulgence. But by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can immediately reach the spiritual planet.
So the Hare Krishna Mahamantra includes Om. So this is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Let me see where it is. All right, keep reading. I'll find it. Go ahead.
Through the exhaling process of Mahavishnu, many universes are created, and through the inhalation process, annihilation happens. The next point, there are many chemicals in the world that combine to create things, like water, for example. The origin of all these chemicals and the process of mixing is from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Next point, just as a fish from the ocean gets caught in the net of a fisherman, us living entities also get entangled in this material world. To get out of the material world, we must surrender unto Krishna. This is from Bhagavad Gita 18.66. Through disciplic succession. Otherwise, if we speculate, we become susceptible to falling into darkness. Who should not be considered as an ordinary man because he is a representative of Krishna. We see Krishna present in the form of a deity, although the atheistic rascals see the deity as a mere stone statue. If one follows and submits to the Guru, then one will become perfect. If one does not follow or submit, then one will fall into tamas, ignorance, and will never be able to understand.
So yesterday, there was one of our sevaks spoke to me, and he said, Prabhu, I'm so happy. I said, why? He said, my daughter is going to get married. I said, really? He said, yes. She met this boy from Canada, and they're going to get married. He said, but all my relatives, they have, boys and they have girls, but they have a lot of girls, and none of them are getting married. I said, well, why are you bringing that up? He said, because every week I do a lot of service here in the temple. I do, and my wife does. And everything's going good for us in our life. We're making good money, and now our daughter's going to get married, and we're happy, and we bought a new house. He said, everything's going good for us. And we see, my wife and I, we both see it's because we're doing all this seva. I said, well, that's a pretty good realization. I said, what? But then I said, well, what if everything goes bad? He said, well, we'll put up with it, but for the time being, everything's going really good, right? And all my relatives, they're all having a bad time, business-wise and with their kids and so forth. I said, well, you should tell them what your secret is. He said, no, they don't listen. Now, I didn't bring that subject up. He came and told me. Because he has actual experience. He and his wife are doing a lot of service every week. They buy a lot of the, almost all the food things that we need. And they're in the temple like 3, 4, sometimes 5 days a week, bringing things and so forth. So, is that something normal that happens when you engage in devotional service? Yes. Now, this man and his wife were not initiated. Now, on the other hand, yesterday another devotee spoke to me, and he said, Prabhu, it's so hard to get devotees to come and do service in the temple. I said, but you're a devotee? He said, no, I'm talking about the initiated devotees. I sent out an email asking them to volunteer to do like 1 or 2 hours at different times at the front desk so that, they can greet people. And I didn't get one answer back. He said, I can't believe it. And these are all initiated devotees. Well, you see, this is an endemic problem. Look that word up, endemic, E-N-D-E-M-I-C. This is an endemic problem. What is the problem? The problem is, over time, people get on the slippery slope. What does it say, endemic? Right. Read the second definition. Where's the microphone? Is there a secondary?
Native and restricted to a certain place.
Any other definition?
Only two Maharaj. Only two.
So this context might mean of something bad that is regularly found among particular people or in a certain areas. An example is complacency is endemic in industry today.
Exactly right. That's exactly. Complacency is endemic in certain place, right? Yeah. So here we see a person who's not initiated, and he's just ecstatic because everything's going good for him because he's coming regularly. He and his wife doing service in temple, and then on the other hand, we're asking people to please come, and because your preachers, especially the ones that do the what's that called? Know yourself, right? Discover yourself, because they're all expert preachers, right? Not one of them will come. That's what this person was telling me. Not one of them will volunteer to come and stand at the front desk to greet people, because and the devotee told me, listen, there's so many people coming here, and they're very good people, and there's no one here to greet them. I'm going to say no one. There are some people that come, some devotees that come, but it's not enough, because there's too many people coming here, and no one's there to greet them, right? That happened last night. We had this huge program. There was nobody at the front desk. That's why I didn't take part in the program. I stayed downstairs the whole time, because there were so many people coming, and very good people. So we see how a person who's not initiated but is engaged in devotional service, he's ecstatic, because he can correlate all the success he's happening to him with the fact that he's engaged regularly in devotional service. Okay, so anyway, that's a side point. So thank you very much. Are you finished? Yeah, very good homework. Okay, Shrestha, you did your homework? Okay, read her homework.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Yes.
So this is Shrestha's homework. Make an outline of the points in the first few pages of the lecture. So the verse is, when egoism in ignorance is agitated by the sex energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the subtle element sound is manifested, and from sound comes the ethereal sky and the sense of hearing.
Now this is an amazing verse, because what does it say? When egoism, okay, look up the word egoism. There's there's egoism and there's egotistic. But there's a slight difference in meaning between the two. But egoism, that's when you're only thinking about yourself. You're selfish. What's it say? Egoism. Okay, that's it. Self-interest. You're only interested in yourself, right? Selfish. Go ahead. So it says, egoism in ignorance is agitated by the sex energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The subtle element sound is manifested, and from sound comes the ethereal sky and the sense of hearing. This is an amazing verse. It's very, very psychological. It's showing the source of basically nonsense that everyone is following in this world today. Go ahead. Sorry.
So here is the outline she wrote. Material creation begins from sound mixed with the mode of ignorance. Material scientists also agree on this matter. The Big Bang theory indicates sound as the beginning of the universe.
I'm not sure about that, but anyway, go ahead. I'm going to look that up.
The principle is that by experiencing spiritual sound, a conditioned soul's spiritual life is rejuvenated. Here is
Right, now this is different. Now he's talking about spiritual sound. The verse is not talking about spiritual sound. It's talking about egoism and ignorance is agitated by the sex energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The subtle element sound is manifested. Okay, so good. And then go ahead. Now it says what happens if you hear transcendental sound.
Yes. Here is a flowchart of the creation. Supreme Lord, Jiva, individual soul, mind plus intelligence plus false ego, earth plus water plus fire plus air plus ether, sight, sound, taste, smell, touch, eyes, ears, mouth, nose, skin. So this is the flowchart of the creation. All the interactions on the lower levels are due to the sanctioning of the Lord and therefore do not occur automatically. Just like a man and woman need to come together to beget a child, the Lord's impregnation of the material energy is what sets the material creation into motion. Because material creation is created in the womb of the ignorance, the entire creation is tamas. Therefore, the Vedic scriptures advise us to come out of this ignorance as soon as possible. It is often said that poison and medicine are often the same things, given in different proportions. Similarly, Prabhupada makes the comparison here that the same poison that created the material creation, sound, can also help us escape the material creation if it is spiritualized. There are different levels which spiritual sound can take you. If you chant the Omkara, you will get impersonal spiritual liberation. If you chant Maha Mantra, you will directly go to Goloka, the spiritual world. Key point: the ultimate connection between our spiritual position and our material position is actually sound. The original spiritual form of...
Okay, and that's very significant. I mean, many of these points she's making are very, very significant. But that is very significant. Key point. The ultimate connection between our spiritual position and our material position is actually sound. In other words, what she's saying is, it all depends on what you're listening to. If you listen to nonsense, you're going to become a nonsense. And if you listen to Krishna Katha, you're going to go back to Godhead. So this is a decision you have to make every day and every minute of the day. What sound are you going to listen to? Because it's going to condition you to see and think in a certain way. Go ahead.
The original spiritual form of sound is nothing but the Vedas. This Vedas was vibrated in the heart of Brahma by Lord Krishna. The spiritual sound vibrations of the Vedas were so powerful that they inspired Brahma within his heart to compose the Brahma Samhita. In this Brahma Samhita, Brahma shares the truth about the material creation. He takes no credit for himself as the creator. Lord Krishna is the one who existed before the creation of the material universe.
Very good. Very, very good. Yeah, she just made some wonderful points. Okay, so Ria also did. Is Ria here? Yeah.
Maharaj, that was for the other class. I think it was for the
Okay, wait a minute. I'm not hearing you.
the homework I did was from the Chatur Shloka class. It wasn't this one.
Okay, that's all right. Read your homework. You ready? Go ahead.
Okay, so this was the homework from the Chaturshloka class. It was to make an overview of the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.32. So, the first point is the secret.
Speak loudly.
The secret to understand the Lord is to receive His mercy, and no one can know the Lord without being qualified. And in this verse, the Lord reveals His form, existence, color, quality, and activities to Brahma because He was pleased with him. Thereafter, He bestowed His mercy to Brahma so that he can factually realize the Lord.
So you see, this is what you would call the secret to success in life. Now, if you understand what's being said here, that means you're going to have a completely successful life. What's complete success? Going back to Godhead. It solves all the problems. There's no more struggle for existence. There's no more ignorance. There's no more reproduction. You don't have to reproduce because you're eternal. It eliminates all the problems of the material world. The question you have to ask yourself is, do I really want this? Most people answer no. It's unbelievable. Most people will say no because they're so conditioned they can't imagine being free of having trouble and being free eternally. So this is what we're up against as a preacher. This is what you're up against because most people will say no. You can outline it to them and they'll say, I'm not interested. I mean, it's very sad, but that's... However, you can see Prabhupada succeeded to convince many, many people because he was not discouraged. Now, if you read Prabhupada's, biography, you'll see he had to struggle tremendously to establish this movement. And usually a person who's like, over 70 years old, they're tired. They don't want to struggle anymore. They want to just have a peaceful time and die peacefully. But he struggled like anything to establish this movement and to give this very, very simple but perfect knowledge by which people can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. And he was surprised that people didn't jump on it, right? That most people just ignored it. He made devotees, there's no doubt about it. But, most of the devotees now have been made, after Prabhupada's disappearance. In his time, he initiated about 4,500 or plus devotees. But through his books and through the preaching of devotees, it's reached now many millions of people. But if you want to know the number of how many devotees there are, or initiated devotees, that's still relatively a small number. You might run into hundreds of thousands, but it's relatively a small number. If you look at Christianity, there's over 1 billion Christians. Islam is like 1.4 billion Muslims, and Hinduism is about 850, 900,000 Hindus, but half of them don't really follow anything. But you see, the numbers. If you look at just numbers, well, this movement is still in its infant stage. It could increase over time, definitely run into the millions. I mean, millions of books have been given out, but not millions of people have been initiated. Right? Okay, so go ahead.
Thereafter, he bestowed his mercy to Brahma so that he can factually realize the Lord. Another point is that one cannot simply understand the Lord by mental speculation or mundane education. The way to obtain the mercy of the Lord is to have unconditional faith in Sri Guru and also in the personal form of the Lord, Bhagavan. For one who is not qualified, the Lord is covered by his Yogamaya Shakti. The impersonalists wrongly think that the Lord has no form, but the reality is that the Lord only reveals himself to pure devotees. This is called Yavan by Srila Jiva Goswami. The impersonalists also think that because the Lord has no mundane form, he has no form. But the Lord has a fully transcendental form, Satchidananda Vigraha. One with a transcendental form is not limited to a material body's functions. The Lord can eat with his eyes, see with his ears, etc. The Lord displays his range of transcendental forms to a pure devotee, such as different colored forms, a lion form like Narasimhadev, a turtle form like Kurmadev, or a boar form like Varahadev, and so on. Thus the devotee is never in doubt that the Lord is formless. Of the unlimited ocean of the Lord's qualities, one of his qualities is his love for his devotees. We see in the Bhagavatam so many stories are described. Narasimha appeared in a never-before-seen form to protect little Prahlad, Krishna lifting Govardhan hill to protect the Vrajavasis. The devotees have full faith in the Lord's pastimes. And finally, this verse completely destroys all arguments by the impersonalists by displaying that the Lord has a form, qualities, and beautiful pastimes, and that one can only see these things by the mercy of the Lord.
Very, very good. Hare Krishna. Very good. Okay, so see, this is related to homework for today also. It's all about focusing the mind on Krishna. This is the unary culture of Krishna consciousness, focusing on one thing, that's Krishna. Now, do you become bereft of knowledge if you do that? No, because Krishna is everything. Everything's coming from Krishna. So if you focus on Krishna, you'll learn everything. You'll learn geometry, you'll learn calculus, you'll learn psychology, you'll learn everything, geology, and geography. You'll learn everything. Everything is there in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. But do you have the faith? That's the question. Someone will say, well, I'll be missing all these classes, you know, I won't be able to get a job. That's not true. It's not true. Getting a job is not difficult if you're well educated. What well educated means, you know your relationship with Krishna, and you function in it. And you'll get any type of job, or you'll start your own company. You know, just like I started my own company. I never worked for anybody my whole life. And I didn't have any training for what I was doing. But Krishna gave me the knowledge by which I could do it. And therefore, all these years, I never worked for anyone. I only had my own businesses. And most of those businesses were very successful. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? So let me give you your homework. Today we covered 3 verses. Bhagavad Gita 10:18, and then Bhagavad Gita 11:36, and then Bhagavad Gita 13:26. Look these 3 verses up. So Bhagavad Gita 10:18, 11:36, and 13:26. I'll repeat it again. Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, 18th verse, Bhagavad Gita 11th chapter, 36th verse, and Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter, 26th verse. Got it? Okay. So, write an essay about what you understand from these 3 verses. This is like a college homework. Write an essay of what you understand by reading these 3 verses. Okay, any questions?
Maharaj, I did my homework.
Oh, I didn't know that. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead. You didn't send it to me.
Yeah, I didn't send it. Sorry, Maharaj. So the homework was to read the lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 26th chapter, 32nd verse.
Okay, now let me just say something here. Homework is not just for kids. Homework is for everybody. So you should take that to heart. Go ahead.
And make an outline of the main points from the 5-page document. I was only able to do half of it, Maharaj.
Okay, speak louder and
So,
slower.
the beginning of the creation is sound. The material creation is sound mixed with modes of ignorance. And everything here in the material world is a spiritual reflection covered by material elements. So there's the Panchabhuta, the 5 gross elements coming from subtle elements. And that's earth. The smell sensation Gandha comes from earth. Water. The taste sensation Rasa comes from water. Fire. The form sensation comes from fire. And air. The touching sensation comes from the air. And ether. Sound comes from ether. And the instrument of hearing, stotram, is created from sound.
So you see, creation takes place from the subtle to the gross. Okay, from the subtle to the gross. And subtle things, sometimes you can't see them. That's where the scientists get confused. You say. Like you can't see the soul, but you can see the effect of the soul. And they refuse to recognize the effect because they don't want to admit that there's a soul, so therefore they refuse to even study the effects of the soul. Go ahead.
And then sound is presented in its original spiritual form. And this is Omkara. So if we capture this sound and make...
Put the microphone closer.
If we capture this sound and make further progress, then there is no more repetition of birth and death. So...
Of spiritual sound.
Yeah. So, like Bhagavad Gita, Antakale Chamameva Smart Muktva Kalebram. If we repeat the sound at the end of our life, then we go back to Godhead. So Krishna imparted the
Which mantra did you say?
8-5.
8-5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Antakale Chamami.
Yeah. Okay.
So Krishna imparted the Sabda Brahma in the heart of Brahma, and Brahma realized his position and could see the whole spiritual world and wrote the Brahma Samhita. So everything is not happening automatically in the creation, and things are happening only by the Lord's will.
Right. So now you have what you call comparison between what they're teaching in school, that everything happened by what?
Chance.
Huh?
And like
chance, yes. By it happened
Big Bang.
By chance, there's no intelligent person behind everything. Right? And then Krishna consciousness, everything happened because of Krishna, an intelligent person, most intelligent person. Now, which one do you think makes sense?
By Krishna.
Why? Now, give me an example. Give an example.
Because
beginning with the known to understand the unknown.
If it's by chance, then like we don't know if it's even true or not. So
no, people would say no, we know because it's here. You know, it all happened by chance.
But how do you know that like it's by like some like primordial soup?
Well, how do you know it happened by God?
Because we have our shastras.
Okay, but the scientists say, but we got our shastras also. It all happened by chance. Now you have to have a better.
We have like cause and effect, because if Krishna, like, it's more structured, our creation, because if it's by chance, because there's multiple theories going on, and the theories are not proven yet, and ours is.
You would not
Like
be
what-
able. You would not be able to convince anyone with that, with those statements.
Like what causes the Big Bang?
They tell you. They give you, all kinds of explanation of what causes it. But it's all nonsense. No, you always start with the known to understand the unknown. Now, what is the known? We know that everything, like in this room, right? So you have carpet, you have like a granite floor, you have a table, you have the sound system, you have the curtains, you have the Christmas lights, you have the pictures. Everything was made by people. Nothing happened by itself, right? So everything you see, that, the products, they're all made by people. And you say that the creation, which is much more complicated than all these things, happened by chance? Are you crazy? When everything in your life, that, the car, the house, the pencil, right? Matches, cell phones, television, it all happened by intelligent people. And you're saying the creation, which is the most complicated thing, much more complicated than any of these things that I just named, happened by chance? Are you crazy? You see? You start with the known to find out about the unknown. Let them deny it. No. Nobody made the microphone. What? Are you nuts or what? So of course somebody made the microphone. Nobody made the train set. What? Of course they made the train set. They're all manufactured products. And it was all done by intelligent people. Everything in your life, your shirt, your socks, right? All these things are made by intelligent people. And you're saying that the whole creation happened by chance? It's insane. It's not logical. Right? They say, no, we have logic. No, they're not being logical. Do you agree with this? If I met you, like, let's say 3 months ago, and I said this, and when I asked, do you agree with this? Would you have agreed? You would have agreed? I don't think so.
Earlier.
Huh?
3 months earlier? No.
Let's say 3 years ago, if I met you and I gave you my little explanation, would you agree with it?
Yes, Maharaj. I was already I read Prabhupada book when I was in 7th grade, so I knew about
No, that doesn't mean you agree. You went to school. You were educated not to agree to such a thing.
But that was only for passing the exams.
What?
That was because the school which I was taught.
Prabhu, you would not have agreed. You would not have agreed. It's only now that you're agreeing. And why is that? Because the influence of that material education conditioned your mind not to agree to such a thing. Now, I'm not going to argue with you, but even just a couple weeks ago, you were telling me things that are not agreeing to this. Right.
No, that was only only to clarify my doubts.
But a doubt is in your mind, right? That means you cannot completely agree with this explanation, that you start from the known to understand the unknown. Because it's opposite to what the scientists do. Anyway, we don't have to discuss it, but
Maharaj, even scientists are not completely denying God, it seems. Yesterday I read an article from Stephen Hawking. He's saying that even though everything is created by chance, it is governed by laws of nature. And you can say that laws of nature is a God.
he doesn't say that.
I mean, it is
You're
a
saying
definition
that.
definition of
saying
God.
No, He doesn't say that. He doesn't say the laws of nature are created by God.
He didn't say that. He said you can say that laws of nature is created by God, but it is only a definition of God. That's what he said.
He actually said the laws of nature are created by God.
No, he said you can say that laws of nature is created by God, but it is only a definition of God. Like that.
A definition of God?
Yeah, that's
You're not making sense. No, I mean, you can say, look, because you're a sentimentalist, you can say everything started by God if that makes you feel good. But we know that's not true. Everything started by our scientific explanations. See, they just pay lip service to God. They don't really believe in God. Hawkins was he's an atheist.
yeah. He has written that, but regarding this, he is saying that you can say, like, he is not saying.
But you
that
can say anything. You can say anything you want. You can say, that Trump created the world. You can say anything you want. Don't you understand? You don't understand English. When he says you can say, that means he's condescendingly talking to you. Because you can say that because you're ignorant. That's what he's saying.
So what you're reading is that he doesn't believe in God. He says there is no God. But if you want to have a definition of God, you can take the laws of the nature as God. So he's
Not that it's a person.
Yeah, it's not a person. It's just.
So that is Mayavad philosophy. You see. So the idea is, anyway, you do the homework for next week. That'll give you the answer to this question. Yeah. All right, go ahead. What? Okay. All right, we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. Haribol. Well, let's have a count of hands. Who is actually going to do homework for next week? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Well, we're gonna. Haribol. What? Do what? Yeah. But somebody else is going to sing. You'll sing tomorrow. Who's going to sing? Sing. You need the words? Ma.
Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bando Mohi Savadana Mate
Bando Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bai Baba Toriya Jai
Hey bye Hey Mama Toriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te mukha padmavakya chitete koriyai kya.
Guru Mukta Padmavakya Chitete Goriya Akya
Harana kohi ho mane asha.
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utamagati.
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utamagati
Jai Prasad Pure Sarva Asha.
Ye Prasade Bure Savasa
Shakshudan dilo jai janme janme Prabhu se.
Shakshudan Dila Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Shakshudan dilo jai janme janme Prabhu se.
Shakshudan Dila Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Divya Jnana Hriday Prakashito. Divya Jnana Hriday Prakashito. Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate. Vedikai Jahara Charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Lokena Lokera Jivana. Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Pada Chaya. Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Pada Chaya. E Bijash Gushukti Bhuvana. Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine.
Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavani Pasyatya Deshatarine.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Nittai Gaura Haribo Nittai Gaura Haribo Haribo Nittai Gaura Haribo
Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Paravajaga Satara Satara Shri Shimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Sarvasya Prem Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sanukunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Samaveda Bhakti ki jai. Nitai Gaura Pranam. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection to fulfill all his desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing this character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of our sea, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanandi Haribol Vanchikalpatarabhisa. Patitanam Bhava.